Hello, this is Angie Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical.
Blessed December, you beautiful little cubs, mama bears, and grumbly papa bears. It's Angie, your guide for all things snuggly. Welcome to December's Earth Medicine and Astrological Forecast. This month arrives with that unmistakable feeling of being at a threshold, kind of like the air itself is whispering, okay, it's time. We kept saying something was coming, now it's here. So December doesn't kind of sneak in. It shows up with its hands on its hip, ready for some truth-telling and soul-level decision-making. So we're entering a month where our belief systems and material reality meet at kind of a crossroads, with the Sun, Venus, and Mars all moving through Sagittarius and into Capricorn, and each of them squaring the lunar node. So we find ourselves right at the bendings, like the karmic pivot points, if you will. These are moments where the old story meets the new possibility, and the universe gently, or in some cases not so gently, says, honey, which way are you walking? Do you even know where you're going? Like, can you see the forest through the trees? So we've been at this Pisces Virgo nodal axis since January, and we're learning to shift from perfectionism, hyper analysis, and obsessive fixing towards faith, surrender, and actual spiritual trust. So December kind of intensifies that lesson as the personal planets come through and poke at the parts of us that still want to control the outcome. Sagittarius, of course, wants to know the meaning behind it, all of it. So the search for purpose, truth, and direction is dialed way up this month because the Sun is in Sagittarius for most of the month, right? So as far as like all the transits and lunations, we're opening basically this month with a full moon in Gemini on December 4th. And that's lighting up communication, conversation, the need to know energy that Gemini is so very good at. This full moon squares the nodes, so things may feel a little out of alignment with what we want from other people. So we may hit resistance. We may feel unheard. Remember, Gemini deals with communication, and it's ruled by Mercury, so it brings clarity in the form of information, messages, or that sudden aha, okay, I get it moment. And this is where our story can sharpen. But Gemini also brings the Mercury challenges, which is feeling unheard, feeling misunderstood, all of those things. So we do deal with that. Now we're just coming out of a Mercury retrograde, so that's going to affect things too. So then on December 10th, Neptune stations direct at the very last degree of Pisces. And that's kind of a big deal because Neptune has been retrograde since July. And as it turns direct, that fog we've been wandering through begins to thin, and we start seeing illusions for what they are. And we regain maybe some sense of spiritual direction or creative flow. And this is Neptune's final station in Pisces before it moves to Aries for good next year. And that's kind of the last inhale of the Piscean era, and the last kind of deep water moment before we emerge onto new land. The Saturn-Neptune pairing at the edge of Pisces is one of those signatures this month that's you're gonna feel it, right? Because Saturn asks us for structure and Neptune dissolves structure. So Saturn holds boundaries and Neptune melts boundaries. So together they ask us very simply, which dreams, which intentions do you want to build? And which ones do you want to release? Some of these visions need form and others need freedom, right? And this month is where we can kind of discern the difference. But we have to do that work of really saying, is this dream still aligned? What do I want out of this? And so we'll feel that real fresh start then at the new moon in Sagittarius on December 19th. And this lunation wakes up all that is Sagittarian within us. The adventurer, the educator, the curious one. It wants expansion, perspective, hope, and a sense of horizon again. And it's widely conjunct Venus and Mars. So our motivation and creativity are there, but also squares Saturn and Neptune. So that means there's some blocks, confusion, hesitancy. Like we can't quite trust our own inner compass. And this is kind of a classic Sagittarian feeling, which I want to leap, but I'm not sure where I'll land. And the answer isn't certainty, it's courage. Remember, we kind of talked about faith coming in this month. That's where we have to leap. You know, if I can think of a tarot card that it matches, it's the Fool, right? Of like walking off the cliff and knowing we're going to be held, knowing there's a bridge there that we can't quite see when we're walking off, right? So, you know, there isn't like a ton of different lunations, and we have some more to talk about, but the ones that are coming in are just, they're interesting because they're dealing with Neptune and with Saturn and some of these things that are bigger for us personally. So on December 21st, we have solstice. Woohoo! Winter solstice, Yule, and the sun enters Capricorn, of course, followed by Venus entering Capricorn on the 24th, and that's when the mood shifts, right? The fires of Sagittarius become that kind of wintry Capricorn energy that's timeless, solid. We begin thinking about what we're building, what will last, what roots actually support us. And then that same day, Jupiter squares Chiron, and that stirs our questions about purpose and our belief in ourselves and things around us. So something may challenge our worldview on the 24th or force us into a reassessment. But ultimately, this is healing. It's a realignment with a truer direction. So we do get one more blessing, and that's Mars entering Capricorn on December 15th. Now, when Mars enters Capricorn, it's exalted. Mars absolutely loves being in Capricorn because this is a focused, disciplined, long-term action place. And after months of emotional or scattered movement, Mars in Capricorn helps us find our footing again. Right before that shift, Mars squares Neptune on the 14th. So that's where we'll feel that confusion and misdirection before clarity is there. That's kind of normal energy, right? We get confused and then we have to seek the clarity. So it's normal, don't panic. It's not going to be like a big deal, but it's going to be something, right? So Capricorn Mars brings us back into focus. So by the time we reach the end of the month, we're not just making plans, we're realigning our will with a deeper purpose. Now Mars sextiles the North Node on the 30th, and that kind of knits together our action to our spiritual direction. And that's kind of a perfect time to set intentions for the new year. Not from a place of pressure, but from a place of like genuine calling or just really needing, you know, that like clarity that comes from the process of setting intention. So just kind of I think it's a cool month. I like that there's not a ton of stuff. I mean, I think in Chani's transits there's like 2 listed, you know, besides the lunation. So, you know, as we kind of turn that astrology to crossroads and thresholds and choices, we have earth medicine that came in for me. So I really chose this stuff like, you know, in October of 2024 or 2024, and kind of channeled all what's the medicine of the month, right? So, and I put it into my calendar, and my new 2026 calendars are for sale in my shop, and I just ordered another printing, so, you know, but they're there. But basically, I choose the medicine, and then as I look at the astrology, because I don't look at the astrology way ahead of time, I'm just not that kind of person, but you know, it's so interesting how it always like comes together. So the earth medicine this month really gives us the cave, you know, the hearth, the warm body of winter itself, and kind of going inward. And I love that. So this month our earth allies are bear, blue topaz, Narcissus, and the deeper medicine of owning where you are, also hibernation and sacred winter rest. And so the picture is a bear, one that's like baring teeth and being grumpy, behind just a standing bear. There's a bed there, a Narcissus, that says, "It's time to sleep. I'm getting grumpy." Right? This is like quintessential inner parenting, right? Is to recognize I'm grumpy because I'm tired. In recovery, we always say halt. So if we're feeling like we're about to drink, right? Or we're feeling restless, irritable, or discontented. Those are the words that we say precede the drink. So if we're feeling restless, irritable, and discontented, we say halt. And that stands for, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired? And sometimes my sponsor says we should say shout or halts, because sick is also another one. Am I sick? But when we're angry, or we're hungry, we need to feed ourselves. Then we can reassess whether we really want the drink, or if we're just feeling irritable because we have low blood sugar. It happens. We're angry. Okay, we need to talk to somebody about why we're angry. What's our role in this anger? Doesn't mean that we're always responsible for our own anger, but we are responsible for our responses to other people, right? And then lonely, can I call someone and just connect for a second? Because that's kind of the key to spirituality, is connection. I think God lives in the connection between people. Or am I tired? Do I need just a freaking nap? Just go sleep. Go shut your eyes and go to sleep. So we have these kind of things that, I think apply to everyone. The halt thing is a really great one. So that's why I put that, like, it's time to sleep. I'm getting grumpy. I'm so grumpy I need to sleep. So how are we interparenting? A bear is such a wonderful medicine for that, because bear is a very protective mother. It's a very good mother. She comes in and really protects and stays with her cubs for a long time. So bear comes in, as the elder of winter, the dreamer, the one who knows how to metabolize the entire year during hibernation season, right? There's a quiet darkness. There's no apology or urgency. Bear doesn't perform. Bear doesn't justify. Bear simply trusts the ancient knowing that winter is for integration. We're meant to slow down. We're meant to retreat into the cave of the self, not as a way of disappearing, but as a way of preparation or preparing. Bear teaches us the power of owning where we are, not where we hope to be, not where we pretend to be, but the honest, raw, beating heart version of right now. This is the soil we build the next year from, right? Is how do we lay that foundation? Think Four of Swords, my tarot readers. We are preparing for the next battle, whatever that may be, right? So we want to hibernate. And remember, things are happening during that season, right? Mama bears that are pregnant have babies in hibernation state. And the babies will feed while they're still in hibernation. They just stay there. And that's the kind of like real important time of connection and integration. Dr. Clarissa Piccola Estes says, to the ancients, bear symbolizes resurrection. The creature goes to sleep for a long time. Its heartbeat decreases to almost nothing. The male often impregnates the female right before hibernation, but miraculously, egg and sperm do not unite right away. They float separately in her uterine broth until much later. Near the end of hibernation, the egg and sperm unite, cell division begins, and the cubs are born in the spring when the mother is awakening, just in time to care for and teach her new offspring. It's not only by reason of awakening from hibernation as through death, but much more so because the she-bear awakens with new young. This creature is a profound metaphor for our lives, for return and increase coming from something that seemed dead. Isn't that an amazing quote? But, we can kind of work with bear at different parts of the year. So when we're working with bear in December, we're of course working with bear as the hibernator, as the one who's kind of integrating everything. So, winter kind of symbolizes that darkness, death, and inner world. And the intrinsic part of that beauty of bear is its connection to this season. And we even know, like, there's a, stars are used to, Ursus Major is the great bear, and we see all the bear metaphors in the sky, but we also can see bear is this time for deep restoration and mothering. And again, the self-mothering is a big one. When we begin to heal wounds like our mother wound or our father wound, we do talk about our inner child, but who takes care of our inner child? I mean, if you walk or live in an area with bears, you quickly learn the most dangerous animal in the woods is a mother bear protecting her cubs. And when that medicine comes forth for us, we have to remember that we are both the inner cub and the mother bear, right? So if we weren't parented in a way that was healthy and our inner parent may be damaged, we have to learn how to reparent ourselves. We have to develop, healthy, non-abusive ways of talking about ourselves. I caught myself doing it just this morning, and I had to go, nope, we don't talk to ourselves that way, Angie. I literally said it out loud. But the medicine of bear is that nourishing self-care and restoring the body to full rested health during this season. We're not searching for food. We're not searching for survival. We're not in that hyper, vigilant state that can sometimes be marked by trauma. We are in a place where we're integrating and we're resting. So bear's the one that honors the wisdom of the seasons. When we work with bear in the summer, we're looking at its ability it's omnivorous, right? Like it eats anything, and it's having babies. It's doing all kinds of other stuff that's active, right? Because bear is massive and hardy with a keen knowledge of what heals. One thing that bears do is they actually do use healing plants and roots for pain relief, for energy. They will eat or roll in healing plants to help them. So they always are kind of ready for whatever's happening. And, when they go in to hibernate, they're at their fattest, furriest, and slowest, right? So they're cuddly and ready for winter. But it's so they can survive that long sleep by giving their body exactly what it needed before they went in. So also remember, how are you honoring your own body? Are you being abusive to it even though, it needs love to heal, right? If you're at your fattest or furriest or slowest, why are you abusing yourself? Maybe you need that. Maybe you need sleep. Maybe you need, the longevity of what that's going to give you. So, think about eating in a diverse way. Lots of plants, fruits, nuts, berries, and meat. But they actually eat less meat than even a fox, which is much smaller, right? Because they have this varied and balanced diet. So in many ways, bear is like our guide for radical self-acceptance because they follow their needs first. So, this would be a great month if you are interested in doing something like mindful eating or something, or intuitive eating, to really think about what am I putting in my body, and not in an abusive way, in that what do I need right now? And it's okay to be I really need a cookie right now, that's also radical self-acceptance. I'm using this, because I'm whatever. I need comfort. That's okay. But just knowing what the intention is behind it is part of what intuitive eating is, is kind of recognizing, oh, this is what I need right now. Now, for our crystal, we have blue topaz coming in, which is soft. Now, blue topaz is a little harder to find, so you can also use aquamarine. That's a wonderful one for this month. It just brings a soft, compassionate clarity. And if we're kind of working with the astrology this month, that's kind of sorting out truth from illusion, blue topaz helps us listen to ourselves, to others, without harshness. And that's the same for aquamarine. I think of these light blue, wonderfully gorgeous stones as watery, and that water is going to soothe heat. So if you're hot, meaning angry, fired up, inflamed. These are going to be bringing that down. Okay? That's why it's really nice to have an aquamarine or a blue topaz, or even like an angel light in the room when you're having a hard conversation, because it helps soothe and cool hot emotions. So it's, it cuts through the noise without cutting the self, you can kind of say. And it reminds us that we don't need, the next 12 things that we have on our list to do. We may only need the next true one. Mars in Capricorn loves this energy because it wants aligned, not frantic energy and action. So it's kind of important to recognize that it's not about doing a lot of things, it's about doing the right thing. So the plant this month was Narcissus, and it can be a winter bloom, and it definitely comes up, one of the first ones to come up. And it's often misunderstood as the flower of self-obsession or narcissism, right? Because of the name. And definitely narcissism came from the word Narcissus. I love the Greek myth, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Narcissus. So he was the son of a river god and a nymph, and he was really distinguished from others by his absolute beauty. And according to the Metamorphosis, which was written by Ovid, Narcissus' mother was told by Tiresias, the blind seer, that he would have a long life, provided he never recognized himself. So he has this lover, basically. I don't even know if she was a lover. It was Echo, the nymph, right? The one that can only say, repeat, right? So he fell in love, or Echo fell in love with him, and he rejected Echo. And so I don't know if Echo or another nymph made him fall in love with his own reflection in the water. So he sees himself in the water. He's like, who is that? That's who I love. And pined for him so much that it would not leave that space, because he didn't want to leave this gorgeous reflection, right? And ended up dying there. And that is where they made the flower that bears his name, the Narcissus. And so, that's kind of why, we kind of think of this when we think of the flower. But truly, the Narcissus has different energy. So in Earth medicine, we think of the Narcissus as a flower of self-recognition, right? Because that's first what happens. It's not supposed to recognize himself. So when we look in the mirror and we see ourselves, it's not about falling in love with ourselves necessarily. It's about recognizing who we are. That's what humility is, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, we recognize it all and take it all as part of who we are without that judgment or hatred or bullying. It blooms when nothing else does, the Narcissus does, because it blooms in winter. So it looks at its own reflection, not to admire, not to fall in love, but to understand. So Narcissus invites us to see ourselves clearly without distortion. And it honors the truth of our needs, our energy, our heartbreaks, our hopes. So self-honesty is not selfishness. It's that sacred work that we do when we're integrating. And that's, I think, why Narcissus came, is because when we're doing this integration work that hibernation calls us to do, we're really doing this, sacred work of understanding the self. And finally, the overarching medicine of this month is hibernation and sacred rest. Not collapse, not avoidance. Rest as a spiritual practice, putting yourself to bed early. Rest as healing. Rest as reclamation. Rest is saying, I trust my body, I trust the timing, I trust the unfolding. We are not meant to, go in this hyper vigilant way that taxes our adrenals. We are meant to root and not rise in December. That's why I feel like studying the Wheel of the Year is so incredibly vital, and understanding the agrarian calendar. What are the farmers doing right now? Well, they're allowing the snow to be on the fields. That helps their plants. That helps the seeds. That helps what's under the earth. We are meant to metabolize the year in December. We are meant to gather our strength for the mountain of 2026, not sprint towards it and do that hurry up and wait thing. We're slowly getting ready for 2026. So that's kind of where we are in December, my loves. Standing at the crossroads with the nodes, dissolving illusions with Neptune, grounding dreams with Saturn, and feeling that first spark of disciplined action as Mars moves into Capricorn. And all the while, Bear is padding softly beside us, leading us back to the cave, and blue Topaz is clearing the inner voice, and Narcissus is inviting honesty, and winter itself wraps around us with permission to rest, restore, and root. This is the work of the dark season, owning where we are, trusting the dream that remains, and remembering that every new beginning starts with a long, holy exhale.
Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie@themoonandstone.com.